always ready to go, to meet the needs of others, the Military Airlift Command stays on the move. From the very beginning of the year 1978, we find MAC participating in various exercises to move people and equipment for training or humanitarian reasons, and to provide mobility and speed to the accomplishment of those missions. The missions vary, as do those involved, but MAC always shows the way to get the job done. Sometimes the conditions are not ideal, and these factors have to be considered. Empire Glacier, an exercise early in the year, provided training for over 12,000 U.S. Army, Navy, Marines, and Air Force personnel. This exercise took place in upstate New York to take advantage of their severe weather conditions. The Air Weather Service weathermen were sent to assist at 21 en route support locations as well as on the scene. The Weather Service is continually involved in MAC exercises. The life-saving skills of MAC units were also called into play as the Aerospace Rescue and Recovery Service joined in with the aeromedical evacuation system to help those who had become ill or injured during such exercises. Moving from an exercise in the cold to the real thing presents no handicap to MAC, as when we saw the mission change slightly to provide support for the snow-torn Northeast during the severe winter of '78. Movement of heavy snow-removing equipment and personnel to operate it into the Ohio area started off Operation Snowblow 1, as over 1 million pounds of equipment was transported on C-130s and C-141s to the weather-blown section. Equipment was provided from throughout the United States to assist in the arduous undertaking. This action was something reminiscent of the same thing in Buffalo a year earlier. Later, it happened again. When areas of Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and Connecticut were paralyzed, over 4 million pounds of supplies and equipment were moved to the scene. The big boy of MAC, the C-5, was used, flying missions from home bases throughout the U.S. In addition to operations within the U.S., and in keeping with the global in mission part of the motto of the command, Military Airlift Command aircraft also completed other operations worldwide. There were numerous missions in support of the United Nations activities, where troops and equipment were moved into Tel Aviv to support the peacekeeping duty in Lebanon. This required C-5, C-141, and C-130 airlift missions to accomplish. Over 3,000 tons of equipment and more than 2,000 troops from 6 nations were moved into this peacekeeping action. Included was the airlift of a Norwegian field hospital and engineer contingent from Oslo, Norway, into Israel. Other United Nations support was given throughout the year as requested. MAC has a major support role in the multi-service training exercises held throughout each year. Solid Shield 78 was the 16th in the annual series, showing the many diversities of the professional and action efforts of the command. Participation in this type of exercise illustrates the spirit of cooperation among the services in accomplishing the mission of each other. MAC transported 1,600 troops, 10 tons of jeeps, trucks, and trailers for this exercise. C-141s and C-130 aircraft from Charleston, Pope, Little Rock, and Dyess Air Force bases were used. Additionally, the reserve units at Andrews Air Force Base, Oklahoma City, and St. Joseph, Missouri provided their support with aircraft and personnel for Solid Shield 78. Frequently, the Air Force Reserves and the Air National Guard are called to support the accomplishment of missions in MAC worldwide. Missions were flown into and out of Zaire in support of the multinational peacekeeping force there. MAC transported jeeps and trucks, as well as small arms and ammunition for use. Mobile kitchens and food were also brought in to assist in the operations. Other materials and medical supplies were also provided. Then, several hundred Pan-African peacekeeping troops were brought in, along with approximately 40 tons of foodstuff and medical supplies for Red Cross activities in the area. Other MAC missions involved flying the president and other top government officials from place to place throughout the world. The visit of President and Mrs. Carter to Russia and the transportation of many foreign dignitaries to the U.S. in support of presidential requirements are typical of the operations covered by MAC's hand-picked members. NATO's annual Autumn Forge exercise series, including Reforger and Crested Cap, brought together the readiness forces of the military. It provided another opportunity to show MAC's capability to move large numbers of personnel and associated equipment to Europe in support of the NATO combat readiness commitments of the United States. All types of military hardware and supplies are moved in various aircraft to field operations anywhere. The big and the small, mechanical or electronic, supplies and people all make the trip to show that MAC is global in mission, professional in action. Just one of the many missions involved included the landing of a C-130 Hercules transport on an 8,000-foot section of unopened German Autobahn. The Air Force controllers secured the landing site and placed runway markers in position. Then General William G. Moore, Jr., Commander-in-Chief MAC, eased the plane down onto the highway without incident. On board were several reporters and a security team participating in the overall event. Following the General's touchdown, others tested the usefulness of an Autobahn landing in the event of a contingency. Photo teams from the Aerospace Audiovisual Service document the numerous exercises and missions of MAC wherever they are, from Europe to the Pacific, from Florida to Alaska. War games, humanitarian missions, whatever. These men and many others are always behind the scenes. Weather people, rescue, medics, and support personnel all make up part of the MAC team. A month-long exercise in Florida called Gallant Eagle showed this team in action, as more than 25,000 participants from all services and over 40 locations in 25 states took part. In the exercise, rescue helicopters provided pickup and delivery of downed crew members, with the pararescuemen making drops and providing medical attention. As soon as practical, plans are made for the medical airlift of patients to nearby facilities, and if necessary, onto other locations where full treatment is available. Throughout all planned exercises, both the rescue units and medical units remain ready to perform their standard peacetime roles as the need arises. Besides Military Airlift Command involvement in Gallant Eagle, there were personnel from TAC, SAC, ATC, AFCS, ADC, the Air National Guard, and the Air Force Reserve. Humanitarian efforts wrapped up the year for MAC, as several headline stories indicate. The Military Airlift Command flew its C-141 transports into Jonestown, Guyana, with the necessary supplies and equipment to move more than 900 bodies to the United States. Accomplishing the task involved several stages. From before Thanksgiving until several weeks later, MAC was involved in the cleanup operations in Guyana. The bodies were flown to Dover Air Force Base for the task of identification and disposition. Once again, the weather brought MAC into action as a typhoon struck Colombo, the capital city of Sri Lanka. C-141s carried tents, blankets, food, and other storm relief supplies to that 25,000 square mile island off the southeastern tip of India. There were more than 200 dead and 150,000 left homeless as a result of the storm. Mac was given the task of evacuating more than 500 U.S. military dependents from Iran. The evacuees were taken to European safe havens where they were processed and cared for. Another humanitarian effort was accomplished by MAC personnel in the northernmost part of Alaska. It seems there was a little old man looking for transportation and assistance to provide joy and happiness to many of the children of the Alaskan tundra. MAC responded, sending the needed assistance in the form of the locally assigned personnel who were available. The end result was joy and happiness for the children and families involved. Santa's visits seem to have a certain something about them that radiates the idea of sharing and spreading joy to the world. Throughout the year 1978, there have been many missions, some humanitarian, some tactical, and some operational. Through them all, your military airlift command has proven itself ready for any contingency, always on the move, and truly living up to their motto, global in mission, professional in action.